The council room on Valthraxis Prime was silent. Elder Taiwan stood before the High Council, his crystalline hands trembling slightly. He had served the Valthran Empire for 3,000 years. He had witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations. But today he felt something he had not experienced in centuries: fear. "My lords," Taiwan began, his voice steady despite his concern, "I have studied the species we discovered on the third planet of this small star system. They call themselves humans. I must warn you, we should not engage with them." High Commander Raxthul laughed. The sound echoed through the chamber like breaking glass. He was young by Valthran standards, only 800 years old, but he commanded the greatest military force in the galaxy. His confidence was absolute. "Elder Taiwan," Raxthul said, still smiling, "you grow soft in your age. These humans are primitives. They have barely left their own planet. Their weapons are crude. Their ships move slower than ours by factors of hundreds. What possible threat could they pose?" Taiwan activated the holographic display. Images filled the air above them. Human history unfolded in rapid succession. Wars, disasters, plagues, extinctions. Again and again, humans faced complete destruction. Again and again, they survived. "Look at their history," Taiwan pleaded. "They have faced ice ages that should have killed them all. They survived. They fought wars that destroyed entire continents. They rebuilt. Disease wiped out half their population. They endured. My lords, this species does not surrender. They adapt. They persist. They refuse to die." Another council member, Lady Shirval, waved her hand dismissively. She was even younger than Raxthul, eager to prove herself. Her voice dripped with contempt. "Every species fights for survival, Elder. What makes these humans special? They have no shields, no plasma weapons, no faster-than-light travel. They are insects. Fascinating insects, perhaps, but insects nonetheless." Taiwan felt his heart sink. They did not understand. They could not see what he saw. The Valthran had been the dominant power for so long that they had forgotten what it meant to truly fight for survival. They had forgotten what desperation could create. "With respect, my lady," Taiwan said quietly, "you are wrong. Their technology is not what makes them dangerous. It is their will. I have watched their transmissions, studied their culture. They have a saying, 'Humanity will endure,' and I believe them." The council voted. The decision was unanimous except for Taiwan. The Valthran Empire would claim Earth and its resources. Resistance would be met with overwhelming force. It would be quick, they assured themselves. A matter of weeks at most. 3 months later, the Valthran fleet appeared in Earth's orbit. Massive ships, each one larger than a human city, blocked out the sun. On the surface, billions of humans looked up at the sky and felt their first taste of true terror. Dr. Hyunjin Lee was in her laboratory when the alert came. She was a xenobiologist, someone who studied alien life. For her entire career, it had been theoretical. Now aliens were real and they were here. Her hands shook as she received the emergency summons. The government needed her. They needed anyone who had ever thought about what might exist beyond Earth. Within hours, Hyunjin stood in a military command center. Screens showed the alien ships in orbit. Radio signals filled the air, foreign and incomprehensible. But Hyunjin was brilliant. She had studied every human language, understood patterns that others missed. She began to work. 3 days later, she made contact. The translation was rough, but the message was clear. The Valthran wanted Earth's resources. They wanted humanity to surrender. They wanted obedience. Admiral Jiwoo Park read the translation with a stone face. She was 53 years old, a veteran of Earth's last major conflict. She had 2 children and a wife waiting at home. She had hoped to retire next year. Those plans were gone now. "Tell them," Jiwoo said to Hyunjin, "that Earth does not surrender. Tell them that if they want our world, they will have to take it from us." Hyunjin translated the message and sent it. She looked at Jiwoo with worry in her eyes. She knew what was coming. They all knew. Aboard his flagship, Raxthul received the human response. He stared at it for a long moment, then smiled that terrible smile again. These primitives dared to refuse him? Very well. They would learn. Target their major population centers, he ordered. Not enough to destroy them completely. Just enough to teach them fear. Show them what happens when they defy the Valthran Empire. The bombardment began at dawn. Beams of energy struck from the sky like the wrath of ancient gods. Entire cities vanished in seconds. Millions died before they could even scream. The attack lasted only 10 minutes, but it changed everything. Jiwoo watched the destruction from her command bunker, deep underground. Her communicator buzzed repeatedly. She ignored it. She already knew what the messages would say. Her home city was on the list of targets. Her family was gone. Something inside her broke. And then, something else, something harder and sharper took its place. Grief could wait. Tears could wait. Right now she had a job to do. She had a war to win. Across Earth, similar stories unfolded. Captain Yeonsu Choi was a fighter pilot. She was 28 years old and had dreamed of being an astronaut. Now she volunteered for the military. Engineer Namgyu Hwang worked in a civilian factory. He was brilliant but lazy, content with easy work. The bombardment killed his brother. Suddenly, Namgyu was not lazy anymore. He had weapons to build. Raxthul waited for the surrender. He waited for the humans to beg for mercy. Instead, he received another message from Admiral Jiwoo Park. It was shorter this time. Only 5 words, come and take it. On Valthraxis Prime, Elder Taewon watched the reports with growing dread. He had warned them. He had begged them to listen. But they had dismissed his concerns as the fears of an old fool. Now they had awakened something terrible, something that would not stop until it had victory or extinction. Taewon looked at the images of Earth. The planet was small, insignificant in the grand scheme of the galaxy. Its people were young and technologically primitive, but he saw something in them that his people had lost long ago. He saw the fire of survival. He saw the desperation of those with nothing left to lose. He made a recording, a message for future historians. His voice was heavy with sorrow. They did not listen. I told them what these humans were, what they were capable of becoming when pushed to the edge. But my people have been strong for so long that they have forgotten what it means to fight for survival. They think strength comes from superior weapons and larger ships. They do not understand that true strength comes from having no other choice. The humans have no other choice now, and we will pay for teaching them that lesson. Raxthul ordered the full invasion. Troop carriers descended through Earth's atmosphere. Valthran soldiers marched across human soil for the first time. They expected quick victory. They expected surrender. What they got was war. 6 months had passed since the Valthran invasion began. Raxthul stood on the bridge of his flagship staring at tactical displays that made no sense. By every calculation, Earth should have fallen within 3 weeks. The humans had inferior weapons, smaller numbers, and no experience fighting in space. Yet somehow they were still fighting. More troubling were the casualty reports. The Valthran Empire had lost more soldiers on Earth than in the previous 2 centuries of conquest combined. Every day brought new losses. Every night brought new nightmares for soldiers who had never known defeat. Sub-Commander Velshaw reviewed the latest reports in her quarters. She was young and ambitious, chosen by Raxthul himself for this campaign. It was supposed to be an easy assignment, a quick victory to advance her career. Instead, it had become a nightmare. The humans did not fight like any enemy she had studied. They did not hold fixed positions. They did not follow predictable patterns. They appeared from nowhere, struck hard, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. They used weapons that should not work but somehow did. They turned their own weaknesses into advantages. Underground, in a bunker that had once been a subway station, Admiral Jiwoo Park studied maps with her command staff. The maps showed Valthran positions across the globe. Red markers indicated enemy strongholds. Blue markers showed human resistance cells. There were far more red markers than blue, but the blue ones were moving, growing, adapting. Their supply lines are stretched, Jiwoo said, pointing to a cluster of red markers. They expected to control our infrastructure, use our resources. Instead, we destroyed everything they tried to take. Now they have to ship everything from orbit. That takes time and fuel. Captain Yeonsu Choi leaned forward. She had aged 5 years and 6 months. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, but they burned with fierce determination. She commanded a squadron of 20 fighters cobbled together from salvaged human technology and stolen Valthran parts. We hit their supply depot at dawn, Yeonsu said. Fast and hard. We destroyed 3 cargo ships before they could scramble their defenses. They are getting slower, Admiral. I think we are breaking them. Namgyu Hwang burst into the command center, his face flushed with excitement. He carried a small device, its surface still warm from the fabricator. In the month since the invasion, Namgyu had become a legend among the resistance. His improvised weapons had killed more Valthran soldiers than entire battalions. "I did it," Namgyu announced. "I figured out their armor. It is designed to disperse energy weapons, absorb kinetic impacts, but it cannot handle electromagnetic pulses at this specific frequency. One of these," he held up the device, "and their suits shut down completely. They are blind, deaf, and immobile for about 30 seconds. 30 seconds is an eternity in combat," Jiwoo said with a thin smile. "How many can you make?" "Thousands if I have the materials. The parts are simple. Any resistance cell can build them." Dr. Hyunjin Lee entered quietly. She looked exhausted but carried herself with quiet pride. In the months since first contact, she had become invaluable. She had learned to read Valthran body language, understand their psychology, predict their tactics. She had interrogated captured soldiers with kindness rather than cruelty, and they had told her everything. "I have new intelligence," Hyunjin said. "The Valthran are struggling psychologically. They have never faced prolonged resistance. Their entire military doctrine assumes quick surrender. This war is breaking their morale. They are experiencing something they have no word for in their language. I believe it translates roughly as the fear of prey." Jiwoo absorbed this information. It matched what she had suspected. The Valthran were hunters who had never been hunted. They were predators who did not know what to do when their prey fought back. "We have them," she said softly. "They still have superior numbers and technology, but we have something they cannot match. We have the will to continue. We will make them bleed for every meter of ground. We will make them pay for every day they remain on our world. Eventually, they will ask themselves if Earth is worth the cost." The offensive began 3 days later. It was coordinated across 12 cities simultaneously. Resistance cells emerged from hiding, armed with Namgyu's EMP devices. Valthran patrols found themselves suddenly vulnerable. Their advanced armor reduced to metal coffins. Human fighters struck from the sky, their tactics unpredictable and chaotic. Supply convoys were ambushed. Communication towers were destroyed. Command bunkers were infiltrated. The Valthran called for reinforcements. They retreated to fortified positions. They increased security protocols. Nothing worked. The humans were everywhere and nowhere. They struck when least expected and vanished like ghosts. Raxthal ordered a major assault on New Seoul, the largest human stronghold. He would lead it personally. He would show these primitives what happened when they defied the Valthran Empire. He committed 10,000 soldiers, his best warriors equipped with the finest weapons. Jiwoo had expected this. She had prepared for it. New Seoul's underground complex was a maze of tunnels and chambers built over centuries. She had spent 3 months turning it into a death trap. The Valthran forces entered the tunnels in perfect formation. They moved with confidence, their sensors sweeping ahead for threats. They did not notice the charges hidden in the walls, the gas canisters in the ventilation shafts, the EMP mines buried in the floor. The humans let them penetrate deep, deeper than they should have gone. Raxthal himself descended into the complex, eager to claim victory personally. His elite guards surrounded him, the finest soldiers in the galaxy. They were unstoppable, until the trap closed. Explosions ripped through the tunnels, not enough to collapse everything, but enough to seal exits, separate units, create chaos. EMP charges detonated in sequence, shutting down Valthran armor sector by sector. Gas filled the air, harmless to humans in their sealed suits but devastating to Valthran senses. And then the human soldiers emerged from hidden passages, firing weapons designed specifically to kill enemies trapped in dead armor. The battle lasted 8 hours. It was brutal, close-quarters combat in darkness and chaos. Valthran soldiers panicked, something their training had never prepared them for. They fired blindly, killing their own comrades. They abandoned positions. Some tried to surrender, but their translators were not working. Raxthal barely escaped. His elite guard was decimated. He emerged from the tunnels covered in dust and blood. His crystalline skin cracked, his pride shattered. Of the 10,000 soldiers who entered New Seoul, fewer than 3,000 emerged alive. Felshaw retrieved her commander from the battlefield. She saw the look in his eyes and felt something cold settle in her chest. This was not the confident leader she had followed. This was someone who had looked into the abyss and seen it looking back. That night, she received a private transmission. It was from Elder Taewon. The message was simple, I warned them. I told them what humans were capable of when pushed to the edge. But they did not listen. Now you see the truth, Sub-Commander. This war cannot be won. The question is, how many must die before we admit it? Velsha deleted the message, but she could not delete the doubt it planted in her mind. She looked at casualty reports, at supply manifests showing depleted resources, at psychological evaluations of traumatized soldiers. The numbers told a story her pride did not want to accept. The humans were winning. Not through superior force, but through something far more dangerous: the absolute refusal to lose. 1 year into the war, everything had changed. The Valthran controlled most of Earth's surface, but that control meant nothing. They held ground, but they could not hold peace. Every street was a battlefield. Every building could hide enemies. Every moment carried the threat of sudden violence. Dr. Hyunjin Lee sat in a cold bunker, surrounded by stolen Valthran equipment. Over months of study, she had cracked their communication systems. She could intercept their messages, read their orders, locate their commanders. But her greatest discovery was something far more valuable. She had found the central command hub, the nerve center coordinating all Valthran forces on Earth. She brought the information to Admiral Jiwoo Park. The command hub was in orbit, protected by shields and surrounded by defense platforms. It was supposedly impregnable. But Hyunjin had found a weakness. Their AI systems, Hyunjin explained, pointing to scrolling code on her display. They are sophisticated but inflexible. I can create a virus that will make them think everything is fine while actually causing cascading failures. It will spread through their network like a disease. Namgyu leaned over her shoulder, studying the code. His eyes lit up with understanding. He had become gaunt in the past year, surviving on coffee and determination, but his mind was sharper than ever. Brilliant, he whispered, but we need to deliver it directly to their systems. That means getting past their defenses. Captain Yeon-Soo Choi stepped forward. She had proven herself over and over in the past year. Her squadron, the Ghost Riders, had become legendary. They flew missions that seemed impossible and returned alive. Barely alive sometimes, but alive. My squadron can do it, Yeon-Soo said. We have been practicing with captured Valthran fighters. We can disguise ourselves as their patrol ships. Get close enough to deploy the virus. Jiwoo looked at her team. They were exhausted, running on fumes and willpower. But they were not broken. They would never be broken. This is our chance, Jiwoo said. If we can knock out their command structure, even for a few days, we can retake major territories. Without central coordination, their forces will be scattered, confused. We can turn the tide of this war. Operation Silent Strike launched 3 days later. It was coordinated across the entire planet. Every resistance cell received the same orders. Wait for the signal, then attack with everything they had. The signal would come when the command hub went dark. Yeon-Soo led 12 fighters into orbit, flying in tight formation. They transmitted Valthran identification codes, spoke in the alien language, moved with the precise patterns of a patrol group. The deception held. Defense platforms did not fire. Interceptors did not launch. They approached the command hub unopposed. At 300 meters, Yeon-Soo gave the order. All 12 fighters unleashed their payload simultaneously. Not weapons, but data packages containing Hyunjin's virus. The packages penetrated the command hub's network through open communication ports. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the lights began to flicker. Inside the command hub, chaos erupted. Displays showed contradictory information. Communication channels went silent. Navigation systems reported false coordinates. The virus spread through every connected system like wildfire, corrupting data, severing connections, creating confusion. The signal went out. Across Earth, human forces emerged from hiding. Valthran units found themselves cut off from their commanders. Officers who had relied on constant updates and orders suddenly had to make decisions independently. They had not been trained for this. Their entire military system assumed centralized control. Without it, they were lost. Sub-Commander Velsha watched her troops dissolve into panic from her command post. Her orders were not getting through. Her sensors were giving false readings. She tried to establish local control, but half her officers were waiting for instructions from the hub that would never come. For the first time in her life, Velsha understood what Elder Taewon had been warning about. The Valthran Empire had become so dependent on their technology, so confident in their systems, that they had forgotten how to fight without them. The humans, who had inferior technology, had learned to think for themselves, to adapt on the fly, to trust their instincts. That made them more dangerous than any weapon. Human forces retook 3 major cities in the first day. They liberated prisoner camps. They captured supply depots. They destroyed Velthran equipment faster than it could be replaced. For the first time since the invasion began, humanity was winning. In the confusion, human commandos captured a high-ranking Velthran officer. He was brought to Hyun-jin for interrogation. She did not torture him. She did not threaten him. She simply talked to him in his own language with genuine curiosity about his people and their civilization. The officer was bewildered. He had been taught that humans were savages, primitives, barely sentient, but this woman spoke his language better than many of his own people. She understood his culture, his history, his fears. She treated him with respect despite everything his people had done to hers. "Why do you continue?" he asked her finally. "You have lost so much. Your cities are in ruins. Billions of your people are dead. Why not surrender? Why not end this suffering?" Hyun-jin considered the question carefully. It was not the first time she had heard it. Captured Velthran soldiers always ask the same thing. They genuinely could not understand human persistence. "Because this is our home," she said simply. "You can take our cities. You can kill our people. You can destroy everything we have built. But you cannot take our will to be free. As long as one human lives, we will fight. Not because we think we will win, but because surrender is not in our nature." The officer was silent for a long time. Then he told her everything she wanted to know. Fleet positions, supply routes, reinforcement schedules, tactical weaknesses. He did not do it because of threats or torture. He did it because he had finally understood the truth. This war was already lost. When he was released in a prisoner exchange 3 weeks later, he told his fellow officers about his experience. Some dismissed him as weak. Others listened. Word spread through Velthran ranks. The humans were not mindless animals. They were intelligent, determined, and absolutely committed to victory at any cost. Belshaw received another message from Elder Tae-wan. This time she did not delete it. She read it carefully, then read it again. "The war is lost, Sub-Commander. Not because we lack weapons or soldiers. We are losing because we are fighting an enemy that cannot be defeated by conventional means. The humans fight not for glory or resources. They fight for survival itself. That makes them more powerful than all our technology combined. You must convince the High Command to negotiate peace before more lives are wasted." Belshaw knew Taiwan was right. But she also knew Raxthul would never admit defeat. His pride would not allow it. He had committed too much, lost too much to back down now. The only question was how many more would die before he accepted the inevitable. On Earth, Jiwoo stood on the roof of a recaptured building, looking out over a scarred city. Smoke still rose from burning Velthran equipment. Her soldiers moved through the streets below, securing positions, helping civilians. They looked exhausted but triumphant. Namgyu joined her, carrying 2 cups of terrible coffee. They drank in silence for a moment, watching the sun set over their battered world. "We are winning," Namgyu said quietly. "I never thought I would be able to say that." Jiwoo nodded slowly. They were winning, but the cost had been staggering. She thought of her family, of the billions who had died, of the world that would never be the same. Victory would not bring them back, but it would ensure their sacrifice meant something. "The Velthran will send reinforcements," she said. "This is not over. They will commit everything they have rather than accept defeat. The real war is just beginning." 2 years into the war, the Imperial Armada arrived. 300 warships emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system. It was the largest military fleet in Velthran history, assembled from every corner of their empire. Raxthul had called for total war, and the High Command had answered. The message broadcast to Earth was simple: surrender immediately or face complete extinction. There would be no negotiation, no mercy. The time for warnings had passed. The Velthran Empire would crush humanity once and for all. Admiral Jiwoo Park received the ultimatum in her command center, now relocated to a fortified position in the asteroid belt. Around her, the best minds of humanity had spent 2 years preparing for this moment. They had used every second to build, to plan, to transform Earth's defenses into something the Velthran would never expect. She broadcast her response on all frequencies, ensuring every human and every Velthran would hear it. Her voice was calm, steady, absolutely certain. "Come and take it." The Armada began its approach. Raxthul stood on his flagship's bridge, watching Earth grow larger on the displays. This insignificant blue world had cost him everything. His reputation, his soldiers, his confidence. Now he would have his revenge. He would burn it to ash and salt the remains. The first wave of Valthran ships crossed the orbit of Mars. They detected no resistance, no defensive positions. The humans appeared to be hiding, cowering behind their planet. It confirmed everything Raxthul believed. They were cowards who had gotten lucky until now. Then the asteroids began to move. For 2 years, human engineers had worked in secret throughout the asteroid belt. They had attached engines to hundreds of massive rocks. They had calculated trajectories with obsessive precision. Now those rocks began to accelerate toward the approaching fleet, gaining speed with every second. Namgyu watched the operation from his command post, his fingers dancing across controls. This was his masterpiece. Kinetic bombardment on a scale never before attempted. The asteroids were not missiles. They were mountains traveling at speeds that made them unstoppable. The Valthran fleet detected the threat too late. Their point defense systems, designed to stop missiles and fighters, were useless against multi-ton rocks moving at relativistic speeds. The first impacts were devastating. Shields meant to deflect energy weapons shattered like glass. Ship hulls designed to withstand plasma fire crumpled like paper. 47 Valthran warships were destroyed in the opening minutes of the battle. Another 33 were crippled, leaking atmosphere and drifting helplessly. The Armada's perfect formation dissolved into chaos. But the Valthran were not defeated. They had numbers and they had survived worse. The remaining ships regrouped, adjusted their approach, prepared to press forward. That was when the second surprise hit them. Thousands of small objects emerged from hiding positions throughout the solar system. They were too small to be fighters, too numerous to be missiles. The Valthran sensors struggled to classify them. By the time they understood, it was too late. Namgyu's second innovation, swarm drones. Each one was barely larger than a person, equipped with a simple explosive charge and basic AI. Individually, they were insignificant. Together, they were a plague. They overwhelmed point defenses through sheer numbers, slamming into ships by the hundreds, finding weak points, exploiting vulnerabilities. Valthran warships that had survived for centuries found themselves under attack from all directions at once. Their gunners could not track targets fast enough. Their shields could not deflect every impact. One by one, critical systems failed under the relentless assault. Captain Yun-Soo Choi led her squadron into the chaos. The Ghost Riders had grown from 20 fighters to 200. They flew modified human ships equipped with stolen Valthran weapons and improvised shielding. They were not as powerful as their enemies, but they were faster, more maneuverable, and far more creative. Yonsu's fighters used Earth's atmosphere as cover, diving into the gravity well and emerging at unexpected angles. They coordinated with swarm drones, creating overlapping attack patterns that were impossible to predict. Most importantly, they targeted command ships, disrupting Valthran coordination even further. On Raxthul's flagship, Sub-Commander Velsha watched the battle unfold with growing horror. The tactical displays showed losses mounting at an impossible rate. The Armada was supposed to be unstoppable. Instead, it was being torn apart by an enemy that should not have been able to touch them. She understood now. The humans had never stopped innovating. While the Valthran relied on the same tactics they had used for centuries, humanity had created entirely new forms of warfare. They had turned their weaknesses into strengths, their desperation into creativity. Velsha made a decision. She had watched thousands die for Raxthul's pride. She would not watch thousands more perish for nothing. She opened a secure channel to Admiral Jiwoo Park. "This is Sub-Commander Velsha of the Valthran Imperial Armada," she said in perfect human English. "I am prepared to discuss terms for a ceasefire. I can provide the location of High Commander Raxthul's flagship, but I need your guarantee that Valthran soldiers who surrender will not be harmed." Jiwoo was stunned. She had not expected this. Dr. Hyunjin Lee, monitoring communications, immediately signaled that the transmission was genuine. This was real. A Valthran commander was offering to betray her own people to stop the bloodshed. "I accept your terms," Jiwoo said carefully. "Send the coordinates. All Valthran who surrender will be treated as prisoners of war under galactic law. You have my word." The coordinates came through. Raxthul's flagship was attempting to pull back, to establish a defensive position, but its location was now known to every human ship in the battle space. Raxthul discovered Velsha's betrayal moments later. He ordered her immediate execution, but her loyal officers refused. The flagship's command structure split in two. Some followed the High Commander, committed to fighting to the last. Others followed Velsha, desperate to end the war before more died. The Valthran armada, already reeling from human attacks, descended into chaos as ships began fighting each other. It was the final blow to their unity, the ultimate proof that humanity had broken them not just physically, but psychologically. Jiwoo ordered a concentrated assault on Raxthul's flagship. Every available human ship converged on the coordinates. Yunsu personally led the final attack, her squadron breaking through the flagship's defenses with a combination of skill and sheer determination. Human Marines boarded the massive ship in an unprecedented assault. They fought room by room, corridor by corridor. The Valthran defenders were skilled, but they were also exhausted, demoralized, and fighting a war they no longer believed in. Raxthul, cornered in his command center, faced a choice he had never imagined making: surrender to primitives or die with honor. His pride made the decision easy. He activated the flagship's self-destruct sequence. Jiwoo detected the energy spike immediately. She broadcast the evacuation order on all frequencies, giving even enemy soldiers the chance to escape. The human Marines ran for their ships. Valthran crew members who did not want to die followed them. The flagship exploded in a flash of light visible from Earth. Raxthul perished in the blast, along with those who had chosen to follow him to the end. But most of the crew escaped, saved by an enemy who valued life over vengeance. The remaining Valthran ships, now under Velsha's command, withdrew from Earth's space. The battle was over. The war was effectively finished. Humanity had achieved the impossible. They had defeated a galactic empire, but as Jiwoo looked out at the debris field, at the thousands of ships destroyed, at the cost of their victory, she felt no triumph. Only exhaustion and a profound sadness. They had won, but the price had been staggering. Earth was scarred. Billions were dead. The galaxy would never be the same. 5 years after the war ended, Admiral Jiwoo Park stood in the observation deck of the Galactic Council station. Through the transparent walls, she could see dozens of different species moving about their business. Ships from 100 worlds docked and departed constantly. This was the heart of galactic civilization, and humanity now had a seat at its table. Earth had rebuilt, though the scars remained. Cities rose from ruins. Forests grew over battlefields. Memorials honored the billions who had died. But humanity had changed in ways that went deeper than physical reconstruction. They had learned they were not alone in the universe. They had learned they could stand against powers far greater than themselves. Most importantly, they had learned the galaxy was watching. Jiwoo walked through corridors filled with alien beings. Some nodded respectfully as she passed. Others moved aside, giving her space. A few stared openly, curiosity mixed with wariness. Humans had become famous throughout the galaxy. Stories of the war spread across thousands of worlds. Some called them heroes. Others called them dangerous. All agreed they should not be underestimated. Elder Taewon waited for her in a private meeting room. The ancient Valthran diplomat looked older than when they had first met through video transmissions during the war. His crystalline skin had dulled slightly, and he moved with the careful precision of advanced age. But his eyes were still sharp, still kind. "Ambassador Park," he greeted her formally. "Thank you for meeting with me." "Elder Taewon," Jiwoo replied, bowing slightly in the Valthran manner. "The honor is mine. You tried to prevent the war. I have always wanted to thank you personally for that." Taewon settled into a chair designed for his species. His expression was sorrowful. "I failed. My warnings were ignored. Millions died because of that arrogance. You spoke truth when no one wanted to hear it," Jiwoo said. "That takes courage. And your warnings did reach some ears. Sub-Commander Velsha told me your messages helped her make the choice to stop the fighting. You saved lives, Elder, never doubt that." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Outside the window, a Valthran ship docked beside a human vessel. The sight would have been impossible 5 years ago. Now it was routine. Former enemies worked together, learned from each other, built something new from the ashes of war. "How is your world recovering?" Taewon asked. "Slowly," Jiwoo admitted. "We lost so much. But humans are adaptable. We rebuild, we endure. The younger generation is already talking about exploring beyond our solar system. They want to see the galaxy for themselves. That terrifies some species, Taiwan said with a slight smile. Humans with faster-than-light travel. The thought keeps certain counselors awake at night. Jiwoo smiled back, but her expression turned serious. We did not ask to become what we are. We wanted peace. We would have been happy staying on our little world, exploring our own system, living our quiet lives, but we were forced to fight for survival. That changes a species, indeed, Taiwan agreed. The Valthran Empire has changed as well. Velshaw's reforms have transformed our military doctrine, our government structure, even our education system. We teach our young about the dangers of arrogance now. We study human history as a lesson in adaptation and resilience. The door opened and Velshaw herself entered. She had aged too, but carried herself with confidence. She wore the insignia of a high counselor now. Her authority earned through the painful lessons of war. Behind her came Dr. Hyun-Jin Lee, now humanities chief xenobiologist and cultural ambassador. Are we late? Velshaw asked, her English now flawless after years of practice. Right on time, Jiwoo replied. We were just discussing how much has changed. Hyun-Jin set down her datapad and smiled warmly. I have news from Earth. The memorial on Luna is complete. Representatives from 43 species will attend the dedication ceremony. It has become a symbol of peace throughout this sector. The memorial had been Jiwoo's idea, a place to honor all who had died in the war, both human and Valthran. It stood on the moon, visible from Earth but neutral ground. A reminder that war's cost was measured in lives, not victories. I would like to speak at the ceremony, Velshaw said quietly, if that would be acceptable. There are things my people need to hear from someone who led them in war. Of course, Jiwoo agreed. Your voice carries weight. Use it wisely. Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent message. Hyun-Jin read it quickly, her expression darkening. There is a situation. An unknown species has been attacking settlements in the Outer Rim. The attacks are brutal, unprovoked. The Council is requesting military assistance. Jiwoo and Velshaw exchanged glances. 5 years of peace had made them hope those days were over. But the galaxy was vast and not all species had learned the lessons they had. What is the Council proposing? Velshaw asked. A joint task force, Hyun-Jin replied. Human and Valthran ships working together. They are calling it a demonstration of unity. But really, they want our experience. They want commanders who know how to fight against overwhelming odds. Jiwoo thought about her comfortable life as an ambassador. She thought about Earth still healing, still rebuilding. She thought about the young generation, who had never known war. Then she thought about innocent beings suffering in the Outer Rim, about species that might face what humanity had faced. We will go, she said simply, but not as conquerors. We go as protectors. We go to show this new enemy what happens when they threaten peaceful worlds. Agreed, Velshaw said. My people owe a debt to the galaxy for the damage we caused. This is a chance to repay it. Back on Earth, General Yeonsu Choi received the orders with mixed feelings. She commanded the United Defense Fleet now, having risen through the ranks on merit and battlefield experience. Peace had been good for her. She had married, started a family, found happiness she never thought possible during the war years. But duty called. She assembled her best pilots, her most reliable ships. The Ghost Riders had become legend, and a new generation of pilots wore the insignia with pride. They would show this new enemy what humanity had learned about warfare. They would protect those who could not protect themselves. Namgyu, now the chief engineer of human space operations, prepared the fleet with his usual efficiency. His designs had revolutionized human shipbuilding. Human vessels were faster, more adaptable, more innovative than anything the galaxy had seen. Other species studied his work, trying to understand the human approach to problem solving. You know, Namgyu said to Yeonsu as they reviewed the fleet. 5 years ago we were fighting for our lives. Now we are going out there to save others. That is quite a change. The galaxy made us into warriors, Yeonsu replied. Now we choose what kind of warriors we want to be. We can be conquerors like the Valthran were, or we can be something better. We can be defenders. The joint task force departed 3 weeks later. Human ships flew in formation with Valthran vessels. The sight broadcast across the galaxy. It was a powerful message. Former enemies united against new threats. The species that had nearly destroyed each other now stood together. Elder Taiwan watched the departure from the council station. He was old now, nearing the end of his long life. But he smiled as the ships vanished into faster-than-light travel. He had lived to see his warnings understood, his wisdom validated. More importantly, he had lived to see two species learn from their mistakes and grow beyond them. On the memorial on Luna, workers put finishing touches on the inscription. It was written in every major galactic language, but the message was simple. Jiwoo had written it herself, drawing on the lessons of 5 years of war and 5 years of peace. Never underestimate those who fight for their homes. Never ignore the wisdom of those who warn against arrogance. Never forget that today's enemy may be tomorrow's ally, and never ever mistake desperation for weakness. Those with nothing left to lose are the most dangerous of all. The galaxy had learned these lessons at tremendous cost, but they had learned them. And in learning, they had become something greater than any single species could be alone. They had become a community, bound not by conquest but by mutual respect earned through hardship. Humanity took its place among the stars, not as conquerors but as equals. They brought with them their stubbornness, their creativity, their refusal to quit, but they also brought their capacity for forgiveness, their ability to see past hatred, their willingness to work with former enemies toward common goals. The war was over. The rebuilding continued. And somewhere in the outer rim, those who had ignored the lessons of history were about to learn what Elder Taewon had tried to teach the Valthran 5 years ago. They were about to learn that humanity, having survived the impossible, would never again let injustice stand unopposed. The elders had warned them. Now it was too late.